Well, we're continuing our interviews with local artists in preparation for the studio tour that's coming up, the famous studio tour. And with me today is Nancy Spaulding. Nancy, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you.
Work with your daughter daily, pretty much.
That's wonderful.
You must be very proud, because
I certainly am.
we love her. She does great work for the island. It's a privilege. So
Thank you so much.
yes. So we're going to talk about the studio tour. We're going to talk about your art practice and your history with art.
All right.
But let's start with the studio tour. You are one of the founders, is that right?
Yes, we many years ago, 1991, Louis and I had moved out to the island about 12 years before that, and we decided we'd come here and be artists, you know, and that's what we did. And we had gotten to know several of the other artists that were here at the time. We had our work over at the Chuckanut Bay Gallery in Bellingham, and the owners of the gallery, Don Salisbury, was a friend, and he said, you know, we've got someone who's doing a studio tour, and I think that would be great for you guys out on the island. Why don't you consider that? So we thought that was a really exciting idea. And I remember being on the ferry, and Mary Sly was on the boat, and we started talking about it, and she had been thinking about the same thing. And so we said, well, let's get together with people we know and see if we can pull something together. And there was a basic group, Melissa Callahan, who's going to be my guest artist this year, which her husband, who was alive at the time, was a wonderful furniture maker, and the two of them wanted to get on board with making this happen. And Amanda Richardson was a wonderful tapestry artist from Cornwall, England, and she was a dynamic figure in our group, and she certainly was on board. So we put our heads together, and we found 9 studios, and that was the first year. And I remember we had a picnic on the beach afterwards, and we said, well, what do you think? Is this an idea we should continue with? And everyone said, yeah, it was really fun, and we met a lot of people, and you know, it was nothing then like what it is now, but it certainly was the kernel that that got the idea going.
So it wasn't official until you met at the beach, right?
Well, that was after the first tour. We had
okay.
a little party afterwards to see how we all survived.
If there'll be a second one.
And if there'll be a second one. And there was, of course. And we've just kept going. And it's amazing. For number one, there are so many more artists here in the community now that have studios that can accommodate the public, and so there's just been a wonderful transition. Lots of great folks have participated.
So started with 9. I think there's 23.
There's 23
studios,
this year.
66 artists for 23 studios.
Yes. So one of the things that developed a few years on was that it might be fun for studios to have guest artists. There were plenty of artists that did not have a space where they could invite the public, and it was just a nice way to bring more people in and have more things for people to see, and it's become a nice tradition.
Now you are on this year's. Have you ever missed one?
I've never missed one.
Never missed one.
I've been on everyone since the beginning.
That's impressive. And so who is your guest artist?
We have 3 guest artists this year. We have Melissa Callahan, who was one of the original founders, who was out for a while but has come back. We have Manya Picard, who does beautiful silver jewelry. And we have Marcia, that you interviewed with her wildlife photography.
Oh, beautiful work.
So
incredible work.
Yes, so we have 3 people.
Are there more artists here per capita, do you think? Has that changed since 1991? Or were they always here and you just had to kind of coax them out of the
You know, that's an interesting question, because I was first going to say yes, but then I'm really not sure because the population has increased too, the general population. So I definitely think that the islands do pull creative people here, either visual artists or writers or musicians. So I think there's something about an island environment. I have my own theories on this. It's not just the beautiful place. It, of course, is part of it.
Sure.
But it's that it's a place removed, and that makes it a meditative place at times. And there's a bit of mystery here, things. The water moves daily with the in and outgoing tides. We don't know what's under the water around us. It's just a very fascinating place, in flux. And my own personal love of islands, I think, comes from having I like shapes, obviously. And here's a piece of geography that you can see the shape of. And it's just a fascinating world.
As an aside, it's kind of fun to get to know you, knowing your daughter, and I see a lot of similarities in your values and kind of the way you look at the world. So that's kind of nice.
Thank you. I have an older daughter, too. Heather's our younger, and she's a creative person in her own right as well. So it was a good move to bring our family here.
From?
While we were living on the mainland, Louis and I came to Washington State as VISTA volunteers in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
We both grew up in Vermont. So we were sent to the Olympic Peninsula and thought, wow, this is really a fantastic part of the country. We're so glad that we discovered it. And
Where were you? Where did you start on the Olympic Peninsula?
we were living in Potlatch. That was our assignment. Was with.
Where's that?
It's on Hood Canal, just a bit north of Shelton.
Okay.
And our assignment was to work with low-income families in the lumber industry, as well as the Skokomish tribe that was along the canal there. So we met some fascinating people and fell in love with the whole thing and stayed. And then Louis got a job up in Whatcom County that was meant to be temporary, just so we could get our feet on the ground. And we ended up starting a family and staying there about 10 years, and that's when I decided that I was going to pursue art. And we started doing silkscreen printing, and then we realized that there was such a thing as street fairs, and we could generate an income, and that was going pretty well. We thought, well, if we can generate an income at street fairs, maybe we can live wherever we want. So we just kind of explored several options, rode our bicycles around San Juan Island in 1977, I think.
Wow.
And we thought, this is it.
Yeah, this place can get you on the very first visit.
It does.
I think it got me in the first visit. It's so unique. It's so different.
It is.
I really like Port Townsend. I lived in Port Townsend for a while.
I
Port
like-
Townsend reminds me more of Friday Harbor and each other than any other two places, but this is even more unique than Port Townsend. Sorry, Port Townsend. I love you, but this is even more, I guess, because it's an island
Because
and a remote island.
It's
and
remote.
right in the middle of the sea. It's just so compelling. And there is kind of an art vibe, even if you haven't seen, all the galleries yet. If you haven't noticed that, there's just a lower gear that I think you perceive it as soon as you're here. I did.
I think, and I've spoken to many people that have a special, unique reaction. It's very deeply personal.
Yeah,
And-
I think I felt it in the first hour.
That's interesting.
45 minutes. Yeah, this is it. This is it. So let's talk about your art. Were you always artistic? Did you feel artistic as a kid?
I did. It became a way of expressing myself very early in my life. And when I went to the University of Arizona, is where I went to college, I thought I would probably major in botany or something because I loved plants. But then I got a job doing little botanical drawings for a professor, and I thought, this is what I really like. And then I sort of moved over into the art department. And
But you had that gift even before you had any training?
well, I thought it was just a natural thing, is what everybody does.
To draw?
To draw
Yeah.
and respond to what's around you by drawing. And to this day, I find that that sketching in the field, for example, it's a way to get to know the things around you.
Sure, sure.
It's to understand how a flower works, how do the petals attach and relate to each other, for example. You think you know, but you have to really look and sort it out. So it's a way to get to know what's around.
Did you start then to move into painting?
I started to move into painting, but it was more difficult than I expected in those early years. I did a lot of pen and ink drawing, and then, as I mentioned, I started doing these silkscreen prints, which involved creating a stencil of a shape and one color that would print one color, and then you'd create a second stencil of another color and layer your image until you completed the image. And that was excellent training for me to see how colors and shapes went together to create a finished piece. It was interesting training in that you didn't know what the finished piece was
Right.
going to be
Right.
until you finished it.
Right.
So it could take a turn.
Do you know what batik is?
Yes, I
Have
do.
you ever done batik?
I have friends that have done batik.
Batik always reminds me a little bit of silk screening, in that it's almost the opposite. How does that work? You
You do
dye, and then you block certain areas with wax that repel the next dye.
That's
and
right.
then you add even more wax until you're down to relatively little for that last color. And it's probably similar to silk screening in that you don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
Well, that's right. And actually the process is quite similar, because what you're doing to the batik or the egg or whatever you're printing, that's what you're doing to the screen
Yeah.
stencil.
Okay.
So you're working in a negative space
Right.
with negative space always.
It's almost
so-
a reductive
Yes,
process.
and it is a reductive process
yeah.
as well.
So were you making T-shirts, or what were you doing with the
Well,
silk screen?
inadvertently, we made T-shirts. This is a funny story. We had a studio over there in Whatcom County, and a Canadian rock group somehow had heard of us and knew that we were silk screening and said, "Can you make us T-shirts?"
Sure.
Well, we didn't turn anything down in those
No,
days, so
no.
we said, "Sure, we'll give it a go." And we'd never printed on fabric before, so it was all a big gamble, but we had them all spread out over the lawn because we didn't know where else to dry them. So kind of this huge op art thing that we had going. But
Do you still have any of the screens?
well, the way we worked was that we would do these screens and, like you said, a reductive. So I would add a resist, and then I would add another resist. So when you were finished with that, then you washed it all off.
Right.
So I have the screens,
Yeah,
but not the stencils.
Right.
So, yeah.
The screens amaze me how tightly woven. I don't know if that's the right word, but it doesn't even seem like a screen. It's such a fine,
Very fine.
opening. It's really fascinating. But yeah, if you take care of them, those things will last forever.
Forever.
For a long time. Well, so then did you have another phase then after your silkscreen phase? How did you get into painting?
Well, I think it was year 2000. It was quite a demanding way to create art.
The silkscreen.
The silkscreen,
Yeah.
because once you started a print run, you had to stand there and pull and
Sure.
so on.
Right.
So it was quite physically taxing. We also got concerned about maybe breathing fumes that we shouldn't be breathing anymore, even though we always open the doors wide open. So I just got up one day and told Louis, that my husband, that I said, "Oh, Doc, I can't do this anymore." And he said, "I'm kind of glad to hear you say that." But it was a big step for us because that's how we were making our living. That's how we sent our girls to college. So that being said, we couldn't do it anymore. And so I began to experiment with numerous things. And in playing around, I had a set of pastels that belonged to a great uncle. And I finally came around to that and started to make little dusty things with it. But I could see that it was what I wanted.
Well, the pastels are similar to drawing. It has that same.
They're similar to drawing,
method,
exactly.
really.
And that's where I feel very much at home. But it also has it can be considered painting,
Oh, sure.
of course.
Right.
And
Right.
so it made that bridge for me that I was looking for.
Is that still your preferred medium?
It's my preferred medium. I'm doing some interesting things with underpainting now and adding different, working on different types of surfaces and just
Well,
playing around.
Jeremy has some of your work. Jeremy, let's take a look at I think you sent us 4 things. That's beautiful. Tell us about this.
That piece was done in about 2012, I think. And in 2016, when well, first I'll tell you about the piece. It was done a year down at, just across from the Redoubt at American Camp, looking across Griffin Bay. And it was a year when there was an amazing display of blue camas on the north side of that road. And I've never seen it quite that way since then. But also chocolate lilies, and you can see a little bit of death camas there, the white as well.
Do you do this on location? What's it called? On plane?
In plein air? I don't do plein
do
air.
you work from photographs?
I work from those
Sketches?
field sketches
Okay. All right.
and also from photographs. And then I go back to the studio and make the compositions there.
I'm really drawn to the mountains. That's really well done. It's really beautiful to get the texture of the forest. It's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Well, it was a wonderful contrast with those darks where they are.
Oh, wow. That's gorgeous.
So this is a new piece. I did this last fall,
Beautiful.
and it's called Meander to Grandma's Cove. And I think every islander knows where that would be, more or less.
The texture on the grasses is excellent.
Well,
So these are one of a kind. You can't make prints of this. Do you make prints of these?
We do make limited edition prints that are smaller than the pastels. Just because I'm used to having editions, and people that collect my work are used to having that option.
Beautiful.
So.
Absolutely beautiful. Next. Nice.
My garden is also a great source of inspiration, and I'm calling this piece Summer Garden Homage to Frida, talking about Frida Kahlo, because I realized that all the flowers I had in that image were ones that she had in Mexico. The calla lilies, the dahlias, the marigolds. So,
Now, where would we find your work? Where can we see your work?
well, up until this year, it was at Island Studios.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still adjusting to the loss of that
Yeah.
studio. So I think what we're going to do is open our studio a couple days a week, as Darlene does, and several other artists do, and just see if something else happens in town, maybe at some point. But right now,
Are you still thinking about that, or have you decided to do that?
I think we're going to do that.
Okay.
We haven't announced it formally, but
Let us
by
know.
the studio tour, we will know and get a
Let us
new
know.
sign up. And
You also
maybe
have friends in the newspaper business, which will probably help with that.
that's very helpful, yes.
Nice.
This is out on the west
Beautiful.
side, a result of a day spent out there and late afternoon, and
Gorgeous.
having the wind blow. And
Now, how long would this take? How long did you take to make?
well, what happens is I go on a site like this and I see things that inspire me, and then sometimes I have to think a bit about just how to portray that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a feeling about the wind and moving air and
Do you do studies in pencil first?
I have I have a cutest little watercolor set that's made for hiking. A tiny little,
Yeah.
little tiny, and I bring that and pencils in a little backpack or a little fanny pack to the field with me. As I also bring my iPhone these days. It's
Sure, why not?
so helpful.
Oh yeah, a better camera than most cameras in the studio.
It's amazing.
They are amazing.
Yeah.
There's not much distortion either.
No, so it's a wonderful way to record and not have to worry about how many pictures you shoot or any of that.
But once you move into the color work here, is that
That's in the studio.
is
yeah.
that a few days or just
It
trying
can
to
be
get?
it can be 1 or 2 days, or it can be it might sit there in the contemplation stage for a while.
Right. Now pastels aren't all that forgiving, right? I mean,
No, actually, pastels are very forgiving.
by over painting.
Pastels have given me so much freedom compared to working with silkscreen inks, for example.
Oh yeah, that's really.
Because everything was set.
Oh yeah.
But pastels, you can actually brush them off,
Oh okay.
and you can paint over it with something opaque and start in again. You try to avoid that situation, but it's something you can do if something's really not making you very happy about how it's coming together.
The white clouds behind the dark clouds, they're really subtle, really beautiful, totally realistic. Beautiful. Okay, next.
Okay, thank you.
Nice.
This is an image from Crescent Beach over on Orcas Island. We were there on one of those foggy summer days, and you just sort of feel your world is.
Some great lines there. I can kind of see an X right in the middle,
It has
radiating out.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was fascinated with what the tide had left for little water channels leading you into the
yeah.
background. And also on that beach, there were just wonderful colored shells, different than you see
Wow.
over here. So those were things that were exciting to me that day.
Beautiful. Next. Ooh, that's pretty.
This is out on Yellow Island, which, of course, belongs to the Nature Conservancy, and always has such amazing flower displays.
You're very good at water. The water is very good.
And this is going back to the silk screening that we were talking about. You can see how much more limited the colors are. I did eventually bring a lot more color in, but
Yeah, it's a
It's
much more
just
limited
shape-
palette, right?
it's harder to,
And yeah, it's beautiful. That tree on the right is beautiful.
it has
It's very well done.
It has a very lovely simplicity to it, and you can just see the shape upon shape upon shape.
Yeah, and
which is-
actually, for anybody who's done this, the intricacy of that tree on the right, it's pretty complex. That's really good detail work.
It is, and the grasses as well.
Right, that's very good detail work. Oh, that's familiar.
I think a few people have seen this piece.
Yeah, about 50 times a day, every day. So I'm sure everybody knows what this is. I was going to take my license plate off the front of the car today. I just ran out of time. We were stuck in a meeting. I was just going to
that's
bring the
fun.
license plate in. But this is the artwork
Yes, it
that
is.
is behind the San Juan Islands license plate. Tell us how this happened.
Well, a few years ago, somebody got the great idea that having a specialty plate would be a good money maker for nonprofits in San Juan County. So they opened up a competition, and artists from all over the county sent in pieces, and I sent one in and waited, and such an honor. It really is such an
Sure.
honor.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's a popular vote that selected this piece, and I just have to tell you, it gives me so much pleasure to think that a piece of my artwork is bringing gifts to to so many organizations
Well,
here.
The colors are really great, including the way they were reduced down to the license plate. When I'm on the mainland and like driving down I-5 or driving around in Bellingham, you can see this from a real distance, or getting on the ferry lot. You can tell right away, who your neighbors are.
It's true.
But there's something, just the Madrona red there and the blue of the water, and the green, it really reads at a distance in a way that a lot of these other plates don't, license plates, even the artistic ones don't read. And it's an extremely flattering depiction of San Juan Island. Is this a San Juan Island plate or San Juan's County plate? What is this license plate?
I think it's the whole county.
Okay. I think of it as, because then there's an orcas plate, a whale plate,
I
right?
think
the blue.
I think there are several different vanity plates.
See, I think
you
of
can
that as
select.
Orcas Islands plate, and this is ours.
Ours. Well, it is
I can
ours.
think
I
that.
mean, you
Yeah.
know where that is. Everyone knows where that is.
I'm just
So.
going to keep thinking that no matter what. And the
Yeah.
Orcas plate's pretty too. I'm not going to knock that. Is that, did that really happen, or did you put those whales in there?
Oh,
after the
that's
fact?
happened many times.
Okay.
Of course, it doesn't happen so frequently anymore, which
No.
is sad. But back in the 80s and 90s, I can remember so many times going out to the park, and
Lost another one over the weekend
I heard
in
that.
British Columbia.
Yeah, that's just,
That's too bad.
I didn't understand what the cause was. But
Just got caught in the low tide, just beached. And they couldn't save it, but yeah, a few less all the time, it seems like. Now, your award for this was what?
my award for this was to get my own license plate, and it was to be #1. However, when they sent me the plate and I opened it up, I was so
It's
excited.
even better.
It was 00000. And so, I'm always having people say, "How did you get that plate?"
I know it's kind of a status symbol to have the lowest number. I know that like the people that have plate number 10 are better than the people that have 100 and the people with 100. So I'm 1,407, and 1,406. But
That's still good.
well, now I'm happy to see the people in the 1800s who are driving around now. It's like, I'm better than
just-
that. You know.
I'm just glad they keep buying them.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean, I
wonderful.
guess we're galloping toward 2,000. So
Yeah,
I don't know
that-
how many of these they're going to have, but it was fun to put that on the cars. Now we're bona fide San Juan Islanders.
That's right.
Yeah, but anyway,
That's
it's
right.
beautiful. Congratulations on that. And
Well, thank you.
now you've divulged the car you drive, so
I know there's.
would you autograph mine? If I go out and autograph one of my plates, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, so what's your next project? What's your future? What are you moving toward right now?
Well, right now, of course, I'm seeing the studio tour coming up and thinking I'd really like a couple of nice new originals. So I'm working on one, which I hope to finish next week, and then I need to decide on a couple other images that I need to go forward with. And the other thing I'm sort of playing with, I see you have the book up there. I was going to write a children's book of black cat images that I did many, many years ago with the silk screens, and I happened to run across my attempt at putting a little book together, and decided I would maybe revisit that as a project.
Okay.
So
Is this it?
no, this is basically the story of my coming to the island with Louis and our girls, and how we built our studio and our home, and had this show circuit life, and what the girls, they're growing up here with.
Could one still find this book?
You
buy
can
this
find the book. The bookstore does have it under local authors.
Griffin Bay?
At Griffin Bay.
Great.
And I
Well, I'll buy
also,
that.
yeah, go check it out.
Wonderful.
I have it also at the studio. So
Okay. So the next book, let's again talk. A little
you can see those are some of the book covers I've done for different
Wow.
island authors over time, or some of them were.
Good to have. So you're kind of the go-to for book covers.
Well, I think there's a lot of other people doing that kind of artwork, but it was a fun opportunity, and it was fun working with the writers.
Do they come to you with a really specific idea, or do they turn that over to you?
Generally, they have an idea in mind, but if it's something that sort of fits with the work I do, then I'll take the challenge.
Excellent. So you're talking about the future book, the next book?
Well, I just have this collection of cat images that I did, and people collected for a number of years, and they do go together in a storyline about the islands. So I thought, well, this might be fun.
And you're writing the story too?
And it's a very short story, but it's mostly a picture book.
When will that come out?
Well, of course, I thought last winter that surely I will have this for the studio tour, but no, I think it'll be hopefully next year sometime.
Well, Nancy, it is a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.
I hear a lot of great things, and I'm a big fan of your license plate art. So
That's terrific.
Maybe there'll be another one of those in the future.
Well,
But it really is, and I have such a high opinion. Heather's such a good friend, and she is such an incredible asset to this. You've got to be incredibly proud that she winds up as the editor of the paper here.
I truly am. You know, she always wanted to write, and here she is. And she does believe so much in small town papers and what they mean to community. And I'm just happy to see her putting her all into that.
Well, we could talk for a few minutes about her, right?
We could. I'm
Yeah.
sure we can.
I think we should do that for just a second. So, was she a good girl? Was she a handful? She tells some stories sometimes, makes me think she might have been a bit of a handful
Well,
from time to time.
She was actually a wonderful daughter. She was quiet and very busy all the time with little projects of her own. She had a lot of fun in the outdoors, especially when we moved to the island. She had a pony for a while that she rode around and just had a great childhood here.
Was she always curious?
Always curious, and you know, she always had an opinion too, and you didn't want to try to argue her out of an
Are
idea.
you enjoying this, Heather? How's this? I bet she's not enjoying this.
No, she's wonderful, refreshing ideas, and she's brought a lot of people into our lives, as has our older daughter. That's one of the things I think has been so wonderful about being a parent, is the world that your children open up to you.
Oh, that's nice. That's wonderful. Nancy,
It's lovely.
great pleasure to meet you.
Very lovely.
So we'll see you on the studio tour. We'll
Great.
definitely be there.
Great.
And you can tell us when you decide on your days and hours. I'm sure the newspaper will scoop us on that one. But,
Okay.
we
I'll
would
do-
love to let
I'll do
everybody
that.
know about that. And thank you for starting the studio tour in the first place. What a success. This
Well-
thing's got legs.
It was several of us that did, and it was certainly an idea that was ready to go.
All
And
right.
It's been very beloved.
Very nice. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching. We'll be back soon.